Hello and welcome to the session on Special Theory of Relativity, Part 1. In Principia, Newton wrote, "Absolute, true and mathematical time of itself and by its own true nature flows uniformly on without regard to anything external. Relative, apparent and common time is some sensible and external measures of absolute time estimated by the motions of bodies, whether accurate or unequable, and is commonly employed in place of time as an hour, a day, a month, a year." Origin and significance of the special theory of relativity. Newton's idea of space and time was absolute. For Newton's laws to be valid precisely, one should observe events from an inertial frame. An inertial frame is one that has no acceleration relative to another frame of coordinates that to be fixed absolutely. But then, what is a fixed system? Either frame which was at rest with respect to James Bradley, but in motion according to Michelson-Morley, was considered as an absolute frame. The uncertainty about the frame of reference presented a serious flaw in a classical physical theory. Further, Maxwell's equations tell us that electromagnetic wave travels with a constant speed c and is independent of the motion of the observer or source. Thus, principles of relativity can be applied to laws of physics in mechanics and not to Maxwell's laws. Even though there was an attempt to modify Maxwell's equation, Michelson-Morley's experiment proved that the speed of light is the same in all the inertial systems. So, the classical relativity principle had to be modified in order that it could be applied to electrodynamics also. This led to Einstein's relativity. In 1905, Einstein proposed the special theory of relativity and the general theory in 1906, which solved most of the problems in classical physics. Special theory of relativity can be applied to the dynamics of particles at all speeds. The space and time intervals are not absolute. Einstein's theory was sufficient for discussing most of the atomic and nuclear phenomena. Einstein tried to solve the uncertainty about the frame of reference, but his concern over a very simple fact like this led to the discovery of how to release the so big energy hidden in the very small nucleus of an atom. The search for an absolute frame of reference, the ether. There is no particle in this universe which is absolutely at rest. When we say a student is at rest in the classroom, he is at rest with respect to bench or with respect to the surface of the earth. But when a person in the Skylab observes, he is in motion because of the spin motion of the earth round its own axis as well as due to the rotation of the earth around the sun. Newton was in search of a frame of reference called fundamental frame or absolute frame with respect to which his laws of motion would hold good perfectly. In 1864, James Clerk Maxwell proposed the electromagnetic theory of light. He proved that light waves are electromagnetic waves and they travel with a velocity c is equal to 3 into 10 raised to 8 meter per second. Now, a question arises, with respect to which frame is this velocity of light measured? Suppose it is expressed with respect to an absolute frame of reference. In that case, the velocity of light with respect to an observer moving with a constant velocity v opposite or along the direction of propagation of light will be equal to c plus or minus v. Michelson and Morley performed an experiment to test whether there exists an absolute frame of reference or not. On those days, scientists considered luminiferous ether to be the absolute frame. They arrived at this conclusion through a logical argument, that is, sound is a wave and needs a material medium, air, for its propagation. Similarly, water waves also need a medium, that is, water. Since light is a wave, there must be a medium for its propagation. Scientists assume that there exists medium called luminiferous ether pervading all space. No one knows about this light transmitting medium called ether. Light passes through heavy materials like glass and also through nearly perfect vacuum which lies between the stars and the earth. This means ether must permeate all of space. Since light is a transverse wave, ether must be a rigid solid. The velocity of light is very large, so they must have high shear modulus. It appears fanciful to have such a thing. The so-called ether, an invisible jelly-like medium having shear modulus, filling hard materials as well as the free space. No one seemed to oppose its existence. And not only that, they considered this luminiferous ether as an absolute frame or fundamental frame with respect to which motion of other objects could be studied. A. Michelson of the USA and his colleague E. W. Morley performed an experiment in 1887 to check whether there exists luminiferous ether frame or not. From their experiment, they concluded that there does not exist a substance called ether. Michelson-Morley experiment. The aim of the experiment was to determine the motion of the earth with respect to the absolute frame of reference, the luminiferous ether frame. The concept of the experiment was to compare the apparent velocity of light in two different directions. The experiment is based on the principle of interference of light. The apparatus used is called an optical interferometer. In 1881, Michelson performed this experiment alone, and then in 1887, the same experiment was carried out in collaboration with Morley. So, the experiment is called Michelson-Morley experiment. S is a source of light emitting monochromatic light wavelength lambda and is made parallel by passing through a convex lens L. This parallel beam is made to incident on a glass plate P, which is half silvered on its right side. The glass plate P is kept at an angle of 45 degree to the incident beam. M1 and M2 are two fully silvered front surface mirrors kept at equal distances from P. That is, Pm1 is equal to Pm2 is equal to L. The silvered surface of the glass plate P reflects half of the light upwards towards M1 and the other half goes to M2. Both M1 and M2 reflect the beams incident on them back towards the glass plate. The two beams travelling at right angles to each other are reflected back by the mirrors M1 and M2. The two rays R1 and R2 reflected from M1 and M2 reunite at P and interference fringes are produced. The fringes are seen through the telescope. The ray 2 traverses the plate P thrice, whereas the ray 1 traverses only once. So, to compensate this, for the beam on, a glass plate P1 of the same thickness as P is placed at the same inclination in the path of the ray 1. So, the light from the source passes through the same number of glass thickness before reaching the observer. The plate P1 is called compensating plate. The whole apparatus is floated on mercury contained in a very large vessel. Michelson and Morley kept the interferometers with the arm PM2 pointing in the direction of Earth's motion around the Sun and the other arm pointing perpendicular to it. Let C be the velocity of light and V be the velocity of the apparatus or the Earth relative to absolute frame, the ether. Let the time taken by the light to travel from P to M1 and then back to P be T1, and the time taken by light for the to and fro trip from P to M2 and back be T2. To find T1, the apparatus moves along the direction PM2 with a velocity v relative to ether. So, as the light ray travels towards the mirror M1, the mirror takes a new position M1 dash as shown in figure 2. The time taken by the ray to travel the distance P M1 dash P dash is T1. During this time, the plate P moves to P dash where P P dash is equal to V T1. From figure 2, P M1 dash is equal to square root of P n square plus n M1 dash square, which is equal to square root of V T1 by 2 the whole square plus L square. The total distance P M1 dash P dash is equal to 2 times M1 dash P, which is equal to 2 into square root of V square T1 square divided by 4 plus L square. Also, P M1 dash P dash is equal to C T1, which is equal to 2 times square root of V square T1 square divided by 4 plus L square. C1 T1 square is equal to V square T1 square plus 4L square. That is, T1 square is equal to 4L square divided by C square minus V square, or T1 is equal to 2L divided by square root of C square minus V square, which is equal to 2L divided by C into 1 minus V square by C square the whole raised to 1 by 2. T1 is equal to 2L divided by C into 1 minus V square by C square the whole raised to 1 by 2, which is equal to 2L by C into 1 plus V square by 2C square. One expansion using binomial theorem and neglecting higher powers of V square divided by C square. To find T2, the relative velocity of the light ray travelling along PM2 is C minus V, and the velocity during return journey from M2 to P is C plus V. Total time taken by light to travel from P to M2 and then back is equal to T2. T2 is equal to L divided by C minus V plus L divided by C plus V, which is equal to L into C plus V plus L into C minus V the whole divided by C square minus V square, which is equal to 2LC divided by C square into 1 minus V square by C square, which is equal to 2L divided by C into 1 minus V square by C square the whole raised to minus 1, which is equal to 2L divided by C into 1 plus V square by C square. T2 is equal to 2L divided by C into 1 plus V square divided by C square, neglecting higher powers of V square by C square. The difference between the two times taken by the light rays to travel the transverse paths delta T is equal to T2 minus T1, which is equal to 2L divided by C into 1 plus V square by C square minus 2L divided by C into 1 plus V square by 2C square, which is equal to 2L divided by C into V square divided by 2C square, which is equal to L V square divided by C cube. The distance travelled by the light during the time delta T is equal to C into delta T, which is equal to L V square divided by C square. This is the path difference between the two light beams starting from the plate P. Due to this path difference, the waves which were in phase during the time they separated at P will not be in phase while they return. Due to this path difference, interference fringes will be seen in the telescope. If the apparatus is rotated through 90 degree, the optical paths PM1 and PM2 will get interchanged, and hence the total time difference will become 2L V square divided by C cube, and the path difference becomes 2L V square divided by C cube. This path difference produces a fringe shift from the position the fringes would occupy if there were no motion of ether or the absolute frame. Let this number of fringes crossing a given reference mark be n. N is equal to path difference divided by wavelength, which is equal to 2L v square divided by c square lambda. When the apparatus was rotated through 90 degree, they expected a fringe shift of 0.4. N is equal to 0.4. When L is equal to 11 meter, V is equal to 3 into 10 raised to 4 meter per second, C is equal to 3 into 10 raised to 8 meter per second, lambda is equal to 5800 into 10 raised to minus 10 meter. The interferometer was capable of detecting a fringe shift of 1/100th, that is 0.01 of a fringe. But during the experiment, no significant displacement of fringe was observed. The experiment was repeated several times over an extended period of time at all seasons of year and at different places of Earth's surface. But always the same negative result was obtained. The experiment failed. The experiment was repeated by many other groups. In the latest experiment performed by Jessija, Jaren, Murray and Toms, 2 laser sources were used. Even though the precision of apparatus was remarkable and very advanced, they could not observe any shift. Explanation of the negative result. The following arguments were given to explain the negative results. 1. The first explanation was given by Michelson. He suggested that the Earth dragged along with the ether the absolute frame in its immediate neighborhood, and hence there was no relative motion between the Earth and the ether. That is, the Earth was at rest at that instant with respect to absolute frame. But the experiment was repeated 6 months later, and Michelson-Morley expected a 4 times magnified effect. But again, they could not detect any fringe shift. Figure 4. 2. Lawrence and Fitzgerald explained the negative result by introducing the concept of length contraction. They suggested that all material bodies get contracted by a factor square root of 1 minus v square by c square in a direction parallel to the relative velocity. This means when the interferometer is in motion, the distance travelled by the light ray R2 is not L, but L into square root of 1 minus v square by c square. In the above derivation, if L is repeated by L into square root of 1 minus v square by c square, there will be no fringe shift. But this explanation is purely theoretical and not convincing, so it was not accepted. 3. The correct explanation of the negative result was given by Einstein. According to him, there is no need of any material medium for the propagation of light waves, and that velocity of light in space is a universal constant. The failure of Michelson-Morley experiment indicates that there is no medium called ether, and if at all it existed, it is undetectable. There is no such thing like absolute fixed frame of reference, and that the fundamental laws of physics took the same form in all inertial frames of reference. Problem. Question. In the Michelson-Morley experiment, the wavelength of monochromatic light used is 5000 Armstrong. Calculate the expected fringe shift on the basis of stationary ether hypothesis if the effective length of each path is 5 meter. Given 1. Velocity of light is c is equal to 3 into 10 raised to 8 meter per second, and 2. Velocity of the earth v is equal to 3 into 10 raised to 4 meter per second. Answer. L is equal to 5 meter, v is equal to 3 into 10 raised to 4 meter per second. C is equal to 3 into 10 raised to 8 meter per second. Lambda is equal to 5000 Armstrong, which is equal to 5000 into 10 raised to minus 10 meter. Fringe shift is equal to 2L v square divided by c square lambda, which is equal to 2 into 5 into 9 into 10 raised to 8 divided by 9 into 10 raised to 16 into 5000 into 10 raised to minus 10, which is equal to 0.2. The expected fringe shift is 1/5 of a fringe width. Postulates of special theory of relativity. Michelson-Morley's experiment indicates that there is no absolute frame of reference system or either, and that all observers who measure the velocity of light will get the same result whether they are at rest or move in different direction with respect to light. But it was not so according to classical mechanics and Galilean transformations. The velocity of light with respect to an observer moving with a velocity v is either c plus v or c minus v, depending on the direction of v. Newtonian concept of space and time and classical mechanics can be applied to only those particular moving with a velocity v small compared to velocity of light, that is v is very smaller than c. From the negative results of the Michelson-Morley experiment, Einstein reasoned that there was no need of absolute frame of reference and that velocity of light is the same in all directions and in all the frames in space. He had the boldness to break away all the old traditional concepts of space-time. In 1905, he announced his revolutionary ideas about the space and time, which is known as special theory of relativity and is applicable to particles moving with velocities comparable to that velocity of light. There are two basic or fundamental postulates. They are: 1. The laws of physics are the same in all inertial systems, so that there is no preferred inertial frame and all the inertial frames are equivalent. This postulate is called the Galilean hypothesis of invariance or Newtonian principle of relativity. This postulate tells us that it is impossible to make any distinction between two inertial frames which are in uniform relative motion with respect to each other by any physical measurement. If these laws of physics took different forms for different moving observers, then the different form of the laws would provide a method for finding the nature of an observer's motion. This would lead us to the conclusion that there is a unique or fixed frame of reference which is impossible to exist as provided by the Michelson-Morley experiment. 2. The second postulate states that the speed of light in free space is the same for all the observers in every inertial frame, regardless of any motion they may have. The second postulate is called the postulate of constancy of velocity of light. Under Galilean transformation, the velocity of light is not constant. But in special theory of relativity, light propagates in empty space with a definite velocity which is independent of the state of motion of the source, intervening medium or observer. Now let me summarize this session. Sound is a wave and need a material medium, air, for its propagation. Similarly, water waves also need a medium, that is water. Since light is a wave, there must be a medium for its propagation. Scientists assume that there exists a medium called luminiferous ether pervading all space. It appears fanciful to have such a thing, the so-called ether, an invisible jelly-like medium having large shear modulus, filling hard materials as well as the free space. Scientists considered this luminiferous ether as an absolute frame or fundamental frame with respect to which the motion of the other objects could be studied. A. Michelson of the USA and his colleague E. W. Morley performed an experiment in 1887 to check whether there exists the luminiferous ether frame or not. From their experiment, they concluded that there does not exist a substance called ether. Before moving to the next session, try to solve the given questions. First one, how is the negative result of Michelson-Morley experiment explained? Second one, what is meant by special theory of relativity? Third one, what is the purpose of compensating plate in the Michelson-Morley experiment? Fourth one, why was Michelson-Morley experiment performed? And fifth one, explain the significance of special theory of relativity. Let me suggest some books for further reading. 1. The Meaning of Relativity by Einstein Albert. 2. Physical Relativity by Harvey R. Brown, 2005. 3. Classical Dynamics of Particles and Systems, 4th edition by S. T. Totten and J. B. Marion. 4. Engineering Mathematics, 5th edition by J. L. Marion and L. G. Craig. Thank you for watching this program. See you next time with another topic. Till then, bye.